What made you want to try pole vaulting?
It looked dangerous, and of course everybody likes dangerous things, and I think, you know, there were all these kids over at pole vault. They were high school kids, so I was in junior high when I started it. None of the junior high kids looked like they wanted to do it. So I said, well, that looks awesome. I want to go do that. And so I was the only one of my friends that tried it. And
at the time, you had limited sight.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes. But I could still see shapes, and I could read large print and things like that.
Yeah.
So I started counting my steps and everything, and the beeper hadn't come into the equation quite yet because I had this little indoor-outdoor carpet that I was using.
Yeah.
But it kind of all started there, and it's become this.
What was Mom and Dad's reaction when you came home and said, I'm going to pole vault?
We were actually at the dinner table, and both my brothers were running track as well, and so they were asking us what events we were going to do at the meet the next day, and I listed all the running events I was going to do, and then very quietly at the end of it I tacked on pole vault, and they all stopped and they said, really? And I said, oh yeah, I've already got it all figured out, it's going to be great. So, and I did get first at that meet. So.
Wow. Take us through the process, because since you initially started pole vaulting, you've lost just about all of your sight. You can see shades now, I guess.
Like just light and dark. So if I go outside and it's sunny outside, it just looks all white to me.
Right.
And
if it's in a dark room or,
right,
or
it just
less
looks all
light,
black.
it's all okay. So obviously the key to pole vaulting is making sure that the pole gets placed properly, and there's
yes, if you do not put the pole in the box, you're in trouble.
You're in big trouble because you're
yes.
running at full speed. So take us through the process of vaulting. How do you do it?
I put Vader on his little Star Wars blanket, which is ironic because his name is Vader, and he sits by my mark, which I mark with a lid from my chalk container, and it's at 80 feet, and that measurement...
That's your starting point?
Yes, and that's 80 feet from the box, which is where you plant the pole, and that's 7 left strides for me. So if you count every stride, it's confusing because you're running fast,
sure.
You're thinking about too much. So I count down from 7, and then when I get to 1, that's my 7th left stride, and I take off. And my track coach, Coach Lester, is at the back of the mat, and he whistles so that I know where the back of the mat is, so that I can tell what's straight ahead and what's not, so that if I get off, I can tell, you know, where I'm going. And then the beeper, of course, is in the box.
How are you placing the pole exactly where it needs to go?
On my second to last step, which is the problem, this is kind of the problem I've had for a while. It's called pre-planning, and it's where you have the pole in the planning position before it's time to jump. And so I've been doing it at about step probably 3, which it should be at step 2.
Right.
And so that's what I've been ironing out. So you run with the pole like this down the whole runway, and then at 2, the pole should be no higher. The top of it should be no higher than your hip. So all you have to do on your last step is just drop it.
Drop it in.
Yes.
Okay. Now you also, and I'm fascinated by this as well, you're the anchor leg for your 4x400 meter relay team,
yes.
which made it to the regional finals in Texas. Anybody knows anything about track in Texas, that is quite an accomplishment. How are you managing your way at near sprint speed, one lap around the track you can't see?
We actually thought, because the beeper was working for pole vault, that we could get some other ones and that they would work for the track as well. And so with UIL, which has been fantastic, the director that we go through is Tracy Neely, and she's been incredible. And we put in it as an accommodation, and we run in lane 1 for all my races. And for our relay, it doesn't matter what lane we run in because I'm the anchor leg, so by the time it comes to me, we've already merged into lane 1.
Right.
But we put those beepers on the inside stripe of the first lane, and so they go all the way around the track. There's probably 20 of them.
So you're listening to know when to turn.
Yes, and so it guides me all the way around it. And the reason we put it on the inside of the stripe is if you put it on the stripe, I'll run a little bit too close to it. So if you put it just on the inside, I'll run as close to the stripe as I can, which is what you want to do.
Wow, that's incredible.